The question if you don't want. Our first question is I have for you is what is your why? How has your life and your background played into where you are today and the majors that you're pursuing? Anyone can jump in if they feel they want to go first.
I can go first. So going into my senior year of high school, I attended the Manhattan College Summer Engineering Awareness Program. Here they would teach you all types of fields in STEM, whether it be in the medical field or engineering. Here I was introduced to chemical engineering. So I was told, to be a part of the manufacturing of products that are going to be used by, me or people in my own family or all around the world. Really just put me into this field. Just the impact of chemical engineers, whether it be in the environmental aspects, the consumer products, or even cosmetics, is just so vast. So it really pushed me towards this major. And I'd have to say that my greatest influence is my mom. She went to Manhattan College as well, but as a civil engineering major. And for her to be a first generation college student, being a woman in STEM and the time that she was is just truly just so inspiring to me. And she always taught me that with hard work and with dedication, anything is possible. And I'll have to say that my greatest hurdle that I've had has to be my struggle with imposter syndrome and overthinking. I think we'll get into this later, but that's just something that I really struggled with throughout my college career.
Yeah, I can hop in next real quick. So a little bit of background about me. I'm a military child, so I've moved a lot throughout my lifetime. And being a military kid has always had me in a culture of service in some way or another. And I think that really impacted into the type of career field I want to go into. I want to become a doctor so I can help people and continue doing that. I've always known I wanted to help people, but what really sent me on the pre-medicine track was when I was a little kid, my little brother actually fell, knocked himself out. And as a little kid, it was very traumatizing for me. I thought he was actually going to end up passing away. Luckily, he's back. He's okay. Everything is fine. But when he got taken away in the ambulance, and then when he came back later that day, I realized that it was medical professionals who saved him. And I wanted to go on that track so I could help people like they helped my little brother. For me, similar to Gabriella, one of the things that has impacted me and been a big hurdle for me is imposter syndrome. Moving around a lot has really made me feel out of place in a whole lot of places, but we'll again dive into more of that later.
Well, I guess I will take this one up now. Um, I think that the way my life and background played into this is that I was always very up in the air about what I wanted to do. But my mom would always say, you should, if you should never have to work for money. Like you should do something you want to do. You know what I mean? And so similar to what Antonio said, I feel like being a STEM major is a way to help people specifically. But I chose computer engineering because I'm just into stuff like that. It's something that I can do and I can have fun doing it. Whether I'm building a circuit or writing a program, I can enjoy it. And I think that's important to what career you chose. I think that the greatest influence and supporter I've always had is my mom, because I grew up in pretty much a single parent household. And she was always the person like supporting me, whatever, regardless of whether I want to do engineering or something else. As long as I had a plan, she was there to help me see it through. I think that the biggest hurdle I faced would be, I guess it would be similar to Antonio. I also was a military child growing up, and so we moved around a bit. I went to several different elementary schools, couple different middle schools and high schools, and so I never really settled in. And I think that made it more difficult to make some of those decisions as well.
All right, and I can close it off with this question. There is so much really to say, but I'll try to keep it really brief. I think one of the main reasons I'm in computer engineering is because I saw the lack of minorities in tech. That goes back to thinking about how in the early 1990s, 2000s, when Mark Zuckerberg had the time, he didn't have to work, he could just go ahead and learn how to program. Our families were working because that's what they had to do to survive. And I think about that a lot in terms of why is there not enough minorities in tech? It's not because we're not interested in it, it's because we haven't been exposed to it. And I think that's been driving me ever since. And I think my biggest hurdle is taking these classes and just being realizing that there aren't a lot of minorities here. And it's okay, do I belong then if there aren't a lot of us here? But again, the thing that drives me is wanting to be that change, wanting to come back to school and be like, look, I did it, you can do it too.
Thank you all. My next question for all of you, what does being in STEM mean to you? What does it mean that you're in STEM taking these courses?
Well, I'll start this one off because I think that this one's a little easier for me to answer. So our motto at Tech is progress and service. And I chose this institution for a lot of reasons. It's a school that's interested in me for a long time, but that motto is a big part of that. I feel like, and not to disparage anything, every position is an opportunity to contribute something to the world. But I feel like STEM contributes so much. And I really feel like, doing something like what we're doing is an opportunity to be that direct in extreme impact in today's society. And I think that's what STEM is to me. It's to make a really big difference.
And I can continue off of that. I think when you hear the word STEM, you're like, oh, wow, that's a really hard field to be in. So I think for me, being in STEM is a title that I wear with pride. I am a Latina in STEM, and it is a very male-dominated field. So I think for me, it means like the strength to pursue this field, to prove everyone wrong every day, and just to ignore the doubt that I have of myself that I do belong here.
So being in STEM means that we all have the ability to make a change and to just serve as an innovator and just solve problems that have been solved before and to solve these problems for the greater good. Whether it be with a product or with a new program, everything you do is to help others. And it's really just such an inspiring field. And I'm so blessed and honored to be a part of it. And specifically, speaking of Edith, to be a woman in STEM, especially a minority, is just as a blessing, and just to show and serve as that example and that mentor to people who feel that they can't do it. But if they see people like us do it, they can do it too. And just to serve as that representation and just to be that, mentor to other people as well throughout, my career.
All right, and then I'll wrap this one up. Similar to Deshaun, actually, my university's mission statement, part of it is pursuit of truth for the service of humanity. So I think for me, STEM is how I can best serve humanity or serve others. So that's why I'm here and that's why I'm doing this.
Thank all of you. Next question. So what steps have you guys taken to build your identity in STEM, to find your community on campus, especially in your field of study when there's so few of us in these fields? What steps have you guys taken?
For me, I think the biggest step is just involvement. I've gotten involved in programs like the Minority Association for Health Students, a whole bunch of other different pre-health organizations for me specifically on campus. So I've been lucky enough that my university does provide those. Outside of those, though, I connect with other people who have those similar interests and who have a similar shared background to me on campus. And then forming groups with them really has helped me solidify that I actually do belong here and actually doing what I'm supposed to do here.
I think that the biggest thing I did was that I took a pre-semester at Tech. They offered this program called the Challenge Program, and it kind of allowed you to get a trial run where you took classes, you lived on campus, you met professors, but it didn't count towards your GPA. Doing that gave me a lot of connections to different organizations and companies on campus, different professors going into my first semester. And I think from that, I had a strong foundation, and I already knew that there was a large group of people that I belonged with. If something was going on, I could walk into this person's office and get that assistance. And they connected me to other organizations like IEEE, the Robo Jackets, and things like that.
And then for me, I think it was making sure that in all that I did, like my roots and my upbringing still stayed with me. And with that, I found a community with the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. And so through all the classes I kind of, took, I realized that I always had somebody in those classes. I was never alone. And that has been the greatest help for me, knowing that there's always someone else with me.
I agree with Edith. I'm also part of the Hispanic Engineering Society as well. And I also am part of I'm very interested in environment as well. So I joined the New York Water Environment Association, and talking about issues that are going on right now in our world are something that's very important as well. And to have people who have the same mentality as you. And I'm also interested in cosmetics. So I joined the Cosmetic Chemist Society. So just really just find people that have similar interests and just to connect with them. whether it be in any type of, ethnicity that they are, just connect with them and feel that you're a part of, the college community as well, and just building your identity in your field as well as in your college.
Thank you. So, coming from being underrepresented, groups in STEM, how have you dealt with or overcome imposter syndrome? And getting to where you are now, whether especially steps through high school to now, like how have you dealt with and overcome it? What tips do you recommend?
So I'll kick this one off. I definitely think, similar to what we previously said, finding your community is going to be a big part of overcoming that imposter syndrome. I, for one, definitely would say that I didn't necessarily go to a high school that was very competitive, and a lot of people from where I come from don't get into tech. So when I got in, I was a little overwhelmed, and it was kind of a culture shock. It was a big shift. But finding a community of people, and similar to what Gabriella said, not even necessarily the same ethnicity as you, because I would say my closest friend group does not really consist of African American people, but they're the people that are there for me. So finding that community. We also actually have some courses that talk about that, because it is a common issue. So I think just getting to know the facts and understanding that you're not alone. Like a lot of us, the vast majority of us, experience and struggle with this issue. And sometimes it helps just to know that it's not abnormal for you to feel this way, and you can get through it.
I think oftentimes for me, I feel imposter syndrome when I do poorly in something. Usually comes with like midterms, and you get your grade back, you're like, oh shoot, like I was not expecting that grade. But then you hear like everyone else around you like, oh, I got a A-, I got a higher grade, and that's when the doubt starts to kind of creep through with me, at least. I'm thinking like, okay, like I didn't do well on this test, like what am I still doing here? And the thing that I have to remind myself is that you're not going to get something right away, and that is completely normal. I think we often think of failure as a bad thing, but it's really how we learn. It's very necessary for our growth as well. But I think the one thing that kind of gets me through is that when you first learned fractions, you thought that was the hardest thing in the world. And now we wish we can go back to fractions. So it's the same thing for me. It's like when you learn something new, it's going to be hard and you're not going to like it. But you're going to like obviously have more practice and exposure with it. With your class, they will carry on after, the same kind of concepts, like you will understand it. So that's something I remind myself that, it's going to take a while. I need to do more practice with it, but I will understand it.
So imposter syndrome is really like such a tricky thing to deal with. So when I was younger, I was like, my abilities were doubted. So then when I got older, I was constantly just trying to prove to myself and, that maybe like, do I belong in STEM? Can I actually do this? So I was constantly taking like AP courses and like joining many clubs. And I was actually able to graduate as valedictorian in my class. So that was something that was, really validating to me. And I was really proud of myself. But then I found myself just constantly trying to like prove myself, which is also very mentally draining as you get older. But with the help of your family and friends, they can constantly just tell you, you're here for a reason. This is not something that's just out of luck or just came out of nowhere. Like it's with your hard work that you're able to achieve your goals. So just to constantly have that support group around you, whether it be family, friends, or anybody, it's truly going to help you through all your issues. And always need to prove yourself. As long as you are trying your best and doing the best that you can do, that's always enough. And just constantly just have your goals in sight and just work towards them no matter what it is.
For me, imposter syndrome has always been something a little bit tricky to deal with. I mentioned I was a military kid. I've moved 13 different times, and with that comes like a two-faceted sort of thing. It was hard for me to move into a new school because I was always a new kid. So I felt an imposter syndrome just being the new kid at a new school. And then on the other side of that, I never felt I could really fit in with the Latino community because I was never connected to my Latino roots because of moving around so much. So kind of combining that together really led to me, similar to what Gabriella said, about always like challenging myself, always trying to compete so I could stay on par with everyone no matter where I was at. Then summer after my junior year, I was actually lucky enough to attend a leadership conference for Hispanics and Latinos. And it was there that I really like solidified my Latino identity. And I use that as sort of a platform for me to continue building up on that. And now here I am now, finding that community here on my campus and getting involved in other ways.
Thank you. Thank you guys all for sharing. And now I want to open it up to anybody, any students, anyone in the watching. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat and we can ask them. We'll have about 10 minutes of this. Any questions at all? If not, I can go to the next one. So a question I have, kind of going with this imposter syndrome. Thinking back to your first year in high school to now, what things would you have done differently? And what things are you glad you went through that made you who you are today? Like, there were trials and errors, but you wouldn't change that because you wouldn't be where you are now.
I'll start. I'll begin by saying I am a firm believer in the statement, preparation is the key to success. But in order to properly prepare, you have to inform yourself. And I feel like I wasn't necessarily aware of that earlier on, specifically at like the beginning of high school. High school is a very precious time to prepare yourself for whatever career you want to go into. It can really make a difference in how complex that process can be. And so I don't think that I did the best job preparing for that early on. I kind of didn't really start preparing for college until like junior year-ish, like middle of junior year-ish. Something that I wouldn't change that I went through is that I said that I didn't necessarily go to the most competitive school, and that kind of made it harder to adjust to college. However, that school did offer me some very good things in terms of social skills. I'm very expressive. I'm very good at using the resources that are available to me. I'm very good at finding opportunity and going out and getting what I need. And I think those are the very skills that allow me to make up for the academic rigor that I didn't have early on.
Thank you. Another question I have around this is, thinking back to all of you guys in high school, what are some of those mentors that like were the most influential to you? Like those voices that you may have been like trying to dismiss at the beginning, but now you're looking back, you're like, yeah, that helped.
I would have to say, it's probably cliche, but my mom, like, she always just had to make sure that I had to know what I was doing. So, I wanted to be a doctor at first. During my junior year of high school, I had to attend the summer engineering awareness program that I mentioned earlier. And I went into their like set that I wanted to be a doctor, but she really wanted me to be a civil engineer. So when I went to this program, the idea of being a doctor just like flew out of my mind. And I just fell in love with chemical engineering. So she really has always just been that person for me to always push me in the right direction, help me to know what I want to do. And I'm just so thankful for her and just for always being that support system for me. And also my entire family too, just always, no matter what field I would want to go into, they were always just super supportive and just always there for me.
For me in high school, it's kind of a weird thing. I never had an actual mentor in high school. I went to 3 different high schools, and each one of them, I was never there long enough to solidify my place. I'd say my first real mentor came my freshman year of college, actually, so just a year ago. There was a senior who was on the pre-med track, had the same major as me, and she was like top of the class, the whole works. And I got close to her through one of the clubs and activities I was involved in. And from there, she's been guiding me throughout the med school application process, MCAT prep, all the different classes I would take as a pre-med, so organic chem, biochem, all those fun stuff. She's been there guiding me every single step of the way. Really, really do appreciate for that. She's doing awesome right now.
And I think for me, I think looking back at it, I'm like, wow, that feels like a long time ago, first of all. But I think someone that I do look up to who did help me get here was my honors pre-calc teacher. And she was the hardest thing ever. I really didn't like her at the time. I wasn't doing well in her class either, second semester at least. And I remember this very vividly because like I was not doing well in her class. And I think that kind of pushed me to be like, oh my gosh, this is the first time I'm not doing well. And it's in math, and I love math. So I kind of had to put more effort into kind of seeing her during lunch and like during my free period, which obviously carried over to now when I have like classes, going to office hours. But it's just the fact that she still like believed in me. She's like, don't, this is like a one bad quiz. This is one bad, test. Like you can still come back from it. And that's something I still like carry on now. It's like, okay, it's like one bad thing. Like it's not the end of the world, which at the time I thought it was. So I think just honestly like failing early on helped me as I got into college. Like, okay, like I can handle this. Like I can bounce back.
Yeah, I guess I would say I've had maybe a few mentors, but the biggest mentor I've had is I was given an opportunity to intern at Georgia Tech in high school, and the professor that I researched under actually we became very close. We continued to communicate after the end of the internship. I was able to return again for a different internship. She provided a lot of tutoring when I was dual enrolling because I was struggling in the math courses. So she provided tutoring. She was the person who wrote my recommendation that I feel ultimately got me into tech. I was initially deferred, and the only change between my initial application and my new one was her recommendation. So I do feel that made the biggest impact on my getting into the institution. And even now we still communicate. She still offers me internship opportunities, tutoring opportunities. So yeah, mentors make a huge difference.
Thank you. Last question I have. What are all of your ultimate goals? What are your short-term goals within the next year or two? And then, your ultimate goals moving forward?
For me, short term, just keep going where I'm at. I'm doing solid with classes on the pre-med track. So short term goals would be actually make it into med school. Ultimately, the long term goal is to join a nonprofit known as Doctors Without Borders, so I can go and help people all over the world with whatever sort of medical assistance they may need. When I was as a military kid, I had the lucky opportunity to live overseas in Germany. And when I was there, the whole ISIS crisis was happening. So we had a lot of Turkish refugees immigrating into Germany. And I was lucky enough to meet and serve with them. In doing so, I really got to see how different life is from my personal experience to anywhere else in the world. So that's the ultimate goal. Join Doctors Without Borders, help people wherever I can.
I can go next. Oops, sorry, Gabriella. So I think short term is go ahead and just graduate next year with a major in computer science and engineering. And then, go ahead and work in some tech industry. But I think, besides like having that job, I really still want to be connected with my community. I think as I climb, I realize that like you can't just, forget about how you got there. So I think always going back to my roots is super important to me. So just having some outreach programs, still being connected with them, and specifically like dealing with younger kids and just exposing them to STEM early on through some kind of way. I just know that I have to be connected through that way. And yeah, that's kind of my main ultimate goal.
So my short-term goal is I would like to work in a consumer products company and to serve as an innovator, whether it be, making a new process or a new product. And my ultimate goal is to be a mentor, whether it be professionally or academically, for those who feel that they don't have the ability to reach their goals. I want to serve as that example and just be there for them. And I also just want to ultimately just be an inventor and create something that is new and has never been seen before.
All right. Well, my short-term goal as first-gen college student is I want to graduate, and I don't want to have any debt, any loans that I have to pay back when I graduate. So far, so good. And I think my long-term goal would be I want to be a tech consultant. I haven't really decided on what company. But the reason why I want to do that is because I grew up in a relatively fatherless household, and I want to be a really good father. And I think that financial stability will be a step towards that. I want to take care of my family. And I would also like to answer the question I see in the chat. I can't speak for everyone, but I would say that knowing these goals for yourself can be a great source of motivation. Just knowing why am I doing this? Like Ricardo said earlier, what is your why? And thinking back on that is definitely going to be one way. And finding that community means that sometimes you don't always have to motivate yourself, because there'll be people in your corner that push you to keep going and to strive to do your best as well.
Thank you, Deshaun. That kind of segues into my last closing remarks. I just want to give each of you 30 seconds to kind of your last words of wisdom to everyone that's watching. You know, what words of wisdom would you give them to help them, to encourage them to move forward in STEM?
Thank you. Sorry, Antonia. I would have to say, it probably sounds super cliche, but just believe in yourself. You are there for a reason. Everything you've done has led you up to that point. It's not just luck, it's your hard work that brought you there. And just don't doubt yourself. College can be extremely stressful sometimes, but make sure that you put some time aside to have fun and to just, reflect on your success, reflect on your failures as well, but don't let any type of small failure become who you are. And just constantly, remember who you are and just have that support group and just be yourself and just have fun. And I wish you all the best of luck in the future.
For me, I'd say my biggest piece of advice is find your community, whether that be people who hold a similar identity to you or people who are just interested in something similar to you. Doesn't matter. Find that community who's willing and there to support you in any way that you can, because it is okay to not know what you want to do with your life. All the panelists have said that we have our paths and we sort of have kind of an idea of what we want, but that wasn't always the case for me. For a long time, I had no clue what I was going to do with the rest of my life. So finding that community can kind of help you find that for you later on.
Your strength and your culture is really your strength. Wait, did I say that right? Your community, your culture, your identity, that's your strength. So like really carry that with you. Know that you don't have to look like them or talk like them to belong. Like your strength is you. Like you belong because you are you. You are qualified. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise.
And I guess I'll end it off with discipline is the name of the game. It doesn't matter where you started, it matters where you end, right? We understand things on different levels and at different speeds. We come in with different levels of information, but how much work you're willing to put in determines whether you're going to achieve the goals that you set for yourself.
Thank you, everyone. We're at the end time, so I want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you all the panelists. Thank you all the students and everyone watching that's joined in on this conversation. It's been recorded. It will be shared later. If you have any questions later on, please feel free to reach out to NACAC and they can get in contact with myself and our panelists, and we can probably get some questions answered later on. I hope you guys all have a great rest of your day. Enjoy the STEM fair and have a good one. Bye-bye.